All right, cool. So, hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Dale Brown with Wild Doc, and we're going to be talking about Alzheimer's disease at this point in time, because there's been no clear investigation. This is just speculation from other researchers at different universities looking into the potential of fabricated science behind the underlying mechanisms and cause of Alzheimer's disease. Specifically, it would be the amyloid beta 53 protein, I believe. Basically, they're calling into question that there may have been just cut and spliced and just completely fabricated, that this beta or amyloid beta protein, I believe it was 56, I apologize. So, and just FYI, everybody, you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, anywhere else, we create PDFs over on Locals for any of our paid subscribers and supporters, basically paid supporters. You'll get a PDF with all the links to all the articles. Now, if you're on YouTube, Rumble, different places where we can't provide those PDFs, you can easily see the titles of the articles. This one is Blots on a Field, a Neuroscience Image Sleuth Findings, Signs of Fabrication in Scores of Alzheimer's Articles Threatening a Reigning Theory of the Disease. So you can guys pause the videos, grab those articles yourselves, do that. We kind of short and simple for other people. They're on Locals for our supporters. We greatly appreciate the support there that allows us to provide the equipment, be able to pay editors, things like that, to get these videos out there, because that's something I'm just not savvy at. But also there on Locals with those, you'll get like the PDF, the title of the article or research study that I reference, plus the highlighted sections that I found pertinent and interesting, or where you may want to share with friends and family and be more accurate with your quoting of this information. So if you got comments and questions, please ask away throughout the video. I'll be keeping an eye here on Facebook. So, so let's talk about it. Blots on a Field, this article, basically what has happened is now there's a neuroscientist and physician, Matthew Scragg, found suspect images in dozens of papers involving Alzheimer's disease, including Western blots, Project in Green, measuring a protein linked to cognitive decline in rats. And that goes back to what had happened. So in 2006, a paper was first authored or published, which sometimes credited as the discoverer. The author was credited as the discoverer of amyloid beta 56, a specific protein, was Lesney, a young scientist. Ash had hired another scientist. Again, we're in the middle of the article here, folks. Ash had hired straight out of a PhD program at the University of Caen, Normandy in France. Ash touted the amyloid beta 56 on her website as the first substance ever identified in the brain tissue in Alzheimer's research that has been shown to cause memory impairment. That's what they hung their hat on. That's what they tooted their horn to. They said this specific amyloid beta protein, this plaque, this 56, is what's causing Alzheimer's disease. Well, it turns out there's really no amyloid beta 56 protein, and it's not really causing Alzheimer's because they cut and splice these DNA testing. So we can go through a few of these highlights on there. Again, these are the things I provide for any of my supporters there. So I don't go through everything. I may touch base on certain things that I think pertinent. And then we're going to talk about some alternative therapies that may show promise as they actually benefit the cognitive performance, the memory, the muscle, and physical functionality of an Alzheimer's patient. Here's the reality. They committed fraud in research on the cause, but when you look at it, the pharmaceutical industry has actually targeted beta amyloid or amyloid beta proteins with drugs targeted to prevent these amyloid beta proteins. So when you look what else has recently occurred in the severe arena of cognitive decline or Alzheimer's disease or dementia, what else has had? Well, actually back in June of 2021, last year, there was FDA panel expert scientists on the advisory panel for the FDA when deciding whether to, or recommending whether or not to approve a drug for Alzheimer's disease. There were panelists on this expert committee who resigned from working for the FDA or being an advisor for the FDA because they said the FDA isn't listening to us. And if you go back, these drugs actually were to target, the drug in this article was to target and slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease, slowing the progression in terms of slowing the buildup of amyloid beta proteins. So that's what the drug did, or the drug was claiming to do. The pharmaceutical industry was claiming it slowed the buildup of these amyloid proteins, but it didn't actually restore cognitive function. It didn't improve the quality of life. It actually did nothing for the patient at all. It was never shown whatsoever to slow the declining rate. And that's the idea of the pharmaceutical industry. Like they're trying to slow the progression, which could be nice, but there's no actual restoration. There's no drug that even is attempting to try. Well, maybe they're attempting to, but they're not finding anything pharmaceutical drugs to reverse the cognitive loss, the memory loss of these patients. And there's actually therapies that will, one of which in clinical trials, both in animal and human trials, found to reverse cognitive decline, improve memory, improve physical functionality and capability, is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So that's where we could actually have hope. And we'll talk a little bit, if we have time, on the mechanisms and ways in which that could help. And something that I found through reading through that review here, just prepping for this video, was that the combination in some trials of hyperbaric oxygen therapy plus ginkgo, and ginkgo is a traditional herb utilized for cognitive performance enhancement and allowing for better circulation to the brain, reducing oxidative stress on the brain, improving vasculature flow or blood flow to the brain and the entire body. So ginkgo, pretty amazing herb, and something that I actually don't have out here on my desk right now, but I actually took my dosage just a second ago of ginkgo because the reality is my brain is, like I tell people all the time, like that's my product I sell. Yes, I have supplements that I utilize to help people improve their well-being and health, but the reality is knowing what to do and when to use those herbs and treatment strategies, that's what is my real product. So it's really what's up here in my understanding of the causes of disease, dysfunction, and health issues. So I want to keep my brain nice and healthy. So I actually utilize hyperbaric oxygen therapy as well as ginkgo. Already doing that before I knew the combination had actually been shown in clinical trials to reverse the cognitive impairment in Alzheimer's disease studies in mice. So experimental studies. So going back here. So they had altered images. The NIH, so the National Institute of Health, which had invested tens of millions of dollars into this work, into these researchers that were claiming they found the amyloid beta protein 56, the one protein that's causing Alzheimer's. And if we target that with the drug and we prevent that with the drug, then you know what? We're going to stop Alzheimer's disease. Well, here's the reality. You know, when I peruse and look through the research on the development, what causes Alzheimer's or what is associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease, if you really want to know what causes Alzheimer's, you don't look at what's going on inside the brain. You can derive clues from that and then design experimental studies to induce those factors in the brain, and then you got to say, okay, so how did we induce that in the brain? How do we induce the amyloid beta proteins, the neuron cell death, the oxidative stress, the scar tissue buildup? You know, how did we do that? Oh, we created a hypoxic environment. We actually injected things that cause oxidative stress or inflammation in the system. You know, why not look at the mechanisms by which those things and changes in the brain occur? What causes the changes in the brain? Not look at the changes in the brain and say, how do we stop the changes in the brain? Now, some people may be confused by that and think, well, if we stop the changes in the brain, doesn't it stop the progression of Alzheimer's? Well, if smoking causes the oxidative stress and the hypoxia that then causes the amyloid beta proteins to build up in the brain as a result of the oxidative stress and the damage to the tissues of the brain, then now you have Alzheimer's disease. So smoking is an associated risk factor with Alzheimer's disease. So why not stop smoking? Diabetes is an associated risk factor in Alzheimer's disease. Cardiovascular disease is an associated risk factor in Alzheimer's disease. So let me put this in a different perspective. For a long time and still to this day, sadly, many cardiologists and medical professionals feel that high cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, high cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease. Cholesterol itself does not cause cardiovascular disease. In fact, cholesterol is essential for our body to function, to be well, to be healthy, to repair damaged tissue, for production of every single hormone in our body. So we need cholesterol. Now, if there's excess oxidative stress, you need more cholesterol to repair the damage. If you're having damage done to your arteries through poor diet, lifestyle, lack of exercise, stress of any type, physical, chemical, or emotional, all of those things cause oxidative stress. They cause damage. All right, so if damage occurs, then you need to repair that damage to your arterial walls or anything else. So cholesterol is a transport protein needed for the transport of lipids to damaged tissue. So if you have a lot of damage going on, or you have a fire that's burning and raging out of control out west, you know what? You need to call in more firemen. You need to call in more repair guys. I bust a bunch of holes in this wall. You know what? The best thing I would do is stop busting holes in the wall. So if smoking or poor diet or stress, whatever it may be, is causing the damage, busting the holes in the wall, it'd be smarter to stop that first and then get the repair guys to repair it. Now, your LDL, as they say, is the bad guys. They're not the bad guys. They're just the ones that put down spackle. They lay down that plaque for the repair of the temporary patch for the repair of that arterial wall. And then HDL comes through and basically sands it down and returns the lipids back to the liver for recycling. Your body literally recycles it. And your body is not dumb. Your body is very intelligent. It's designed by God. So give it credit. Give him credit. So why does it do that? If it recycles something, it's good for you. Just hang your hat on it. If the body recycles something, it's good for you. So both of those are necessary for proper repair and then cleaning up of the excess, lipid that's laid down for that repair. So just like cardiovascular disease and the association of higher cholesterol, the high cholesterol is not going to cause the cardiovascular disease. It is what's causing the high cholesterol or the damage that is causing the cardiovascular disease and the increased stroke and heart attack risk. All right? So when you watch what's happening in the brain, if amyloid beta proteins are building up on the brain, you need to figure out why and what is triggering that response. And look at the mechanisms by which that would occur. Don't just try and remove what is occurring in the brain that builds up in the brain during a disease process. You're not stopping. Somebody smoked and did all the things that caused the Alzheimer's disease in the first place. If they don't stop that and they just take a drug, it's not going to do anything. That's why every drug ever approved for Alzheimer's disease does not work. I've done videos before, and you can find them on thewilddoc.com. You can sign up for our email campaign there so we can stay in contact, as YouTube has been censoring a lot of my content. And that's where you can get it either on Locals or Rumbles if you search The Wild Doc there. And if you like and comment and heart this video, do the things necessary to improve the algorithm so this information can get out. But I did a video, and Ashley, if you could switch to make sure that we switch into the screen periodically, go through a quick few slides that I've gone through in a previous PowerPoint presentation on Alzheimer's disease, and more or less when I was talking about the panel, the experts on the FDA's advisory panel basically quitting their job because they didn't want to work for an FDA that wasn't going to listen to them and was just going to allow for profits and money to be driven into the pockets of the corrupt pharmaceutical industry. But you have articles like this, like the FDA approves Alzheimer's drug gives hope to Tennessee families. This was one of our local news stations. It's not a cure, they said. On Monday, the FDA approved the first ever drug to slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. They approved it based on the theory and idea that amyloid beta proteins in the brain, as they build up, that's what causes Alzheimer's disease. So the drug reduced the rate of beta amyloid. It just slightly reduced the rate of beta amyloid protein buildup in the brain. But it didn't actually restore any cognitive capability, and actually didn't reduce the rate of cognitive decline. So the research actually showed it changed something in the brain. Well, you could maybe study with an imaging test, but actually the outcome that a family would want for their family member, their grandma or grandpa, their loved one, well, it didn't allow them to remember their family member anymore, to be able to function better on their own. Well, how is that hope? Oh, your test results come back better because of this drug, but I'm sorry, your family member still can't remember you, and actually they're not going to ever be able to remember you with just this treatment alone, or this treatment at all, rather than just addressing the symptoms. That's what they went on to say, rather than just addressing the symptoms. What are the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease? Memory loss, not being able to function on your own, not being able to clothe yourself, not being able to physically get out of bed on your own eventually. Yeah, so those are the symptoms. That's what you lose. The symptoms are what you lose in your capability of living a quality of life. So why not treat the symptoms? And that's kind of what I'll go into here. But I've got these articles and things like that on the website and things. And not only that, Alzheimer's drugs actually doubles your risk of dying. So no drug. The pharmaceutical company will sell you a drug, make thousands of dollars because the FDA approves it when it doesn't have actually any benefit for your family member. And then it'll increase your family member's chance of dying. Double it, actually. But yet they still have no actual real world benefit. Do you get me? That's what's heartbreaking about this. So, yeah. Fabricated research on Alzheimer's drug. If you want to read those articles, that's where you can go to that article. But the members of the panel, so FDA is corrupt. That's what I'd like to say with that. But let's get into some hope here. All right. Yeah, I don't need that one. I'm talking about maybe mechanisms a little bit later. But, so again, a major point that I want to get across here is the pharmaceutical industry, even the medical model, basically, they are focused on treatment of test results. And I see this way too much. And I even see it in more of functional, coming from functional medicine doctors, see it less often in chiropractors. Our outcomes, the quality of life, the improvement in the quality of life of my patients is really the best measurement of whether I'm doing my job well or not. Like, that's what I hang my hat on. If somebody says they feel worse, but yet their test results look better, I don't go, your test. There are some circumstances, I guess I could take it back for a very temporary period of time. Maybe you could say, okay, even though the test results are looking better, even though your symptoms may be worse at this point in time, or you have new symptoms, you know what? Give your body a little bit more time, because sometimes there's the pain of going through cleansing and healing and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, all right, kind of like a workout. If you're sore after your workout, you probably had a better workout. All right. If you never walk away sore from a workout, you're probably not making that fast of gains or much gains at all. But I don't test and then just treat test results. We need to treat human beings like human beings, and we need to have the goals for that human being be their goals. And again, if somebody is suffering with Alzheimer's disease, their goal, the individual's goal, I guarantee you, even if they can't speak it and communicate it, because Alzheimer's progressed so far, what they want is not for less beta amyloid or amyloid beta proteins to be built up on their brain. They want to remember their loved ones again and have a normal conversation and be able to function on their own again. That would be their desire. And in previous videos I've done on this, there's been clinical case studies on things like turmeric being able to restore cognitive capability, women and men not defecating on their doorsteps, actually being able to find their bathroom in their own home. One of the individual in this very small clinical trial of turmeric, the use of turmeric on a year basis, a long-term study, a year, the individual was actually able to return home because they could remember their family members again. That's not FDA approved, though, so don't take what I just said as turmeric is a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. I'm just saying that's what the clinical trials showed. Those were the results of it. But yeah, FDA has not approved anything that I'm talking about as far as hyperbaric oxygen therapy, turmeric, vitamin B, certain vitamins, ginkgo. Any of the things that I mentioned are not treatments for Alzheimer's disease because they're not FDA approved. All right. Why not? I'd wonder. The FDA approved something that does nothing for the actual goals for the human being against the wishes of their panel, but yet things that in clinical trials, both in animal and in human trials, human beings actually being able to remember their family members again after they had no longer been able to remember them. Why isn't getting FDA approval? Doesn't baffle me. It does not baffle me. I know why they do that. There's really only one explanation. Cha-ching. Okay, anyways. A review of the application of hyperbaric oxygen therapy in Alzheimer's disease. This is a published review of the available clinical research out there on Alzheimer's disease, both animal and human. They actually went through, they reviewed the records of 552 items within the database, such as PubMed. 103 were duplicates, so they removed those. They were published in multiple journals. So they had 449 records were examined based on abstracts. They only eliminated 58 articles or were excluded. Those were excluded because of there was no original data to be able to be reviewed. They were meta-analysis, kind of like this one. They were commentaries or correspondence. So they ended up with 391 full-text articles included in the final review. So a whole lot of research in this review. And what they find? So it is characterized, so they're talking about Alzheimer's disease. It is characterized by amyloid deposits, neurodegeneration, associated loss of synapses, and low levels of neurotransmitters in the brain. So that is the hallmark. That's what they watch and see in the brain of Alzheimer's disease. So let me ask you, if you just reduce amyloid deposits, all right, just amyloid deposits, amyloid protein deposits in the brain. If you just did that, but you left the neurodegeneration, the associated loss of synapses, and low levels of neurotransmitters in the brain, if you had all those, but you removed the amyloid deposits, are you going to cure Alzheimer's disease? How did they expect, how does the FDA expect that the drug was ever going to be beneficial? Any drug that just targets one aspect but doesn't actually stop the neurodegeneration, doesn't stop the loss of synapses, connections of your nervous system and brain, or the lack or low levels of neurotransmitters to be able, neurotransmitters necessary for the signaling, transduction, for messages to go through. How in the world did they ever think that that was actually going to be beneficial? That's what I would like to ask them. But somehow they allow a pharmaceutical company to make big bucks on these drugs. So while the exact cause of Alzheimer's disease has not yet been discovered, several risk factors, and this is key. If you want to think about this, this is key, okay? Several risk factors are associated with the disease, including age, gender, socioeconomic factors. But when you look at age, it's more time that you could have accumulated the stressors, had more head trauma, exposed to more chemical toxicity, more time that you spent smoking, things like that. That's oftentimes why age is associated with almost any disease process. It really kind of is, with degenerative diseases especially. So, socioeconomic factors, which alter lifestyle a lot of times, education, head injuries, key, sleep, hypertension, genetic factors. Okay, they go through, and those are just some of the risk factors. Now, I've looked through other research studies, and if I were to actually say, somebody asked me here recently, what would I want to do with a family member or for a family member who had Alzheimer's disease? And I said, well, I would want to look to liver dysfunction, the ability for the body to detoxify. I'd want to look at the gut health. I'd want to make sure that they're obviously not eating a fat rich with oxidized fats in it, your vegetable oils and things like that, your high saturated fats from unhealthy items and foods. I'd want to remove chemical exposures in their diet, things like that. So I'd want to make sure that they're not causing or doing the things that have the associated risk. They're not smoking. If they had a head injury, I'd want to get them under chiropractic care and get them into an HBOT unit. I want to get them on some herbs that improve vascular blood flow to the brain. I might want to utilize such things as lion's mane mushroom that helps with nerve growth factor. So I'd want to get rid of as many of the factors that are listed here and other things that are out there and say, what could I do to reduce the exposure to those things? And then what could I do to allow their body to heal? And actually here in a minute, I've got a couple minutes. I try to get through this, but I think I'm going to have to wait to go through kind of the mechanism of hyperbaric oxygen therapy and do this here in a little while. I've got a call here at 2 p.m. Our time. But it's a really good write-up. And let me see if I can get to some of the conclusions. Clinical animal research review in this paper, clinical trials, that would be in humans, and animal research reviewed in this paper indicates that HBOT, that's hyperbaric oxygen therapy, can significantly improve cognitive function in Alzheimer's disease patients. In human beings, their cognitive function improved, assessed through different cognitive scoring tests. So the drugs didn't improve cognitive function. They improved a supposed test result. But hyperbarics allowed people to be able to function cognitively better, very quickly. And again, I'm going to have to go through the details later. The therapeutic aspects include improved memory, cognitive, and motor functions in human patients and improved escape latency. So these are kind of like you take a mouse, you induce Alzheimer's disease through various mechanisms. You can do that in clinical trials. And then they take these rats or mice and then they put them in water and they have like submerged underneath the surface of the water where the rat or mouse can't see it. They have a platform where the mice is going to obviously want to not drown. So they're going to search for a platform, a way out of the cage, the fishbowl. And they're going to get up on that platform. They'll remember it. Well, you put them back in like the same corner and they would swim directly to. As they memorize where that platform is, they're going to go right there. You induce Alzheimer's and then they swim around again like they can't find the platform. Well, they took mice and they got them to memorize where the platform was, and they timed how fast they could after they learned where the platform was. And so they quickly swam to the platform. Well, then they induce Alzheimer's disease in these mice, and then they can't find the platform as much. They're kind of searching aimlessly and then haphazard finding the platform. And then they did HBOT therapy, so they did hyperbaric oxygen therapy to the mice, and then the mice were able to improve their ability to remember where the platform was. So that's how they test in mice studies, or one of the ways in which they test the cognitive performance of mice. So animal trials improve cognitive ability and timing. So you actually have real-world beneficial effects. Now, I've got to go, but what I want to say is here's the reality. HBOT therapy upon the clinical trials has improvements, but they're temporary because the cause of Alzheimer's disease is not the lack of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It's not getting under higher pressure and increased oxygenation of the blood, although hypoxia is a clinical situation within the brain, so low blood flow and oxygenation in the brain is seen in Alzheimer's disease. But again, what is causing that in the first place? What is causing the hypoxia or low oxygenation? What is causing the oxidative stress? So hyperbaric oxygen therapy helps heal the damage that has been done, but because it's not going to remove the cause of what is causing declining neuronal health, the nervous system health, you're not going to cure the condition, all right? But it can help recover somebody faster, and we'll go into that in more detail I know that I have kind of a break in between some meetings here, so I might get back live on Facebook here in a minute. So sorry to cut this one short and not be able to go through the details of this. But again, I just wanted to go over the fact that yet again, we're seeing that the pharmaceutical industry and the scientific industry is kind of preying upon people in their time of suffering and not actually seeking and utilizing tools that have already been found to have beneficial, real world beneficial effects for those who are suffering at this time. So again, I'm Dr. Dale Brown, I'm the Wild Doc. Wild Roots Wellness is our clinic. You can find the PDFs to articles and things that I go over on locals there. For our supporters, if you're a supporter, I greatly appreciate your support. And all right, y'all, have a great day, and we'll chat again soon. All right, bye.